A reptile turning into a mutant isn't exactly groundbreaking in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles multiverse. The Turtles may have hit the mutation jackpot, becoming fierce warriors with a sharp sense of humor, but another mutant wasn't so lucky. Instead, he carried a menacing and unpredictable reptilian rage. Let me tell you the story of a mutant sewer alligator, the original Leatherhead. Leatherhead's story began as an exotic pet living in captivity. One day, chaos erupted when a violent shooting broke out in the apartment. In the middle of the commotion, baby Leatherhead escaped and made his way into the sewers. The poor little alligator survived by scavenging whatever he could find, including rats, until an Outram named Xenos, whom we later came to know as Dr. X, discovered him. Xenos, who had a habit of adopting pets, welcomed Leatherhead into her care at TCRI. She studied him closely, but a familiar accident changed everything. Leatherhead was exposed to mutagen, which transformed him into an anthropomorphic alligator. The mutation troubled the Outrams, whose beliefs were firmly against tampering with life forms. Yet, feeling responsibility for what had happened, they allowed Leatherhead to stay and even gave him a name. In the Outram language, Leatherhead meant moment of cognizance, birth of understanding. Despite his new life among the Outrams, Leatherhead felt a strong connection to his roots in the sewers. He often ventured back into them for days at a time, though he always returned to his home at TCRI. On one of his excursions into the sewers, Leatherhead was enjoying the water when he was disturbed by a very young and annoying Raphael, who threw rocks at him, thinking he was just a regular alligator. The turtles quickly ran away, accidentally leading Leatherhead straight to 4 aliens who were searching for the Outram base. When the aliens saw Leatherhead, they immediately opened fire. This triggered Leatherhead's reptilian rage, and he didn't stop until he had injured all of them. Once the battle was over, Leatherhead regained control of himself, and guilt consumed him. Despite his advanced intelligence and sophistication, he remained vulnerable to his primal instincts. His reptilian rage overwhelmed him, forcing him to commit acts of violence that were both brutal and abhorrent. Dr. X found him just in time to offer comfort, reminding him that the most important thing was his ability to regain control of his senses. For Dr. X, the incident was a blessing in disguise. She revealed that the 4 aliens were Sigmurthites, ancient enemies of the Outrams, who were likely up to no good. Many years later, the turtles helped the Outrams return to their homeworld, escaping from Earth's military forces. Unfortunately, all of this happened while Leatherhead was away on one of his excursions into the sewers. When he returned to TCRI, he found only ruins, with no trace of his Outram friends. The lingering smell of gunpowder led him to assume that humans were responsible. Despite his sadness, he held on to the hope that the Outrams had successfully returned to their world. Leatherhead salvaged what little he could from the wreckage and retreated deep into the sewers. Leatherhead's presence didn't go unnoticed. At one point, 2 Con Edison employees spotted him, and the news made it into the newspapers. Despite City Hall's denials, the story was enough to attract the attention of Mr. Jack Marlin, a notorious big game hunter known for killing endangered species. This also caught the eye of Emil Tendaji, an officer from Spare, who tracked Marlin to the New York City sewers. The tunnels were crowded that day. The turtles were running from both Marlin and the Foot Clan when they accidentally stumbled upon a secret passage leading to Leatherhead's hidden dwelling. Unfortunately, Marlin made it inside, and that was when Leatherhead revealed himself. The sight of this giant talking alligator was enough to make Marlin faint. Aware of their presence since they first entered the tunnels, Leatherhead introduced himself and shared his story. He suspected the turtles might be connected to the Outrams and hoped they knew how to contact them. However, the turtles explained that they had lost track of the Outrams after they left Earth. Leatherhead revealed that he was working on a deep space communicator to re-establish contact. Marlin regained consciousness and followed them with the intention of getting their heads as trophies. Leatherhead destroyed a bridge to put a distance between Marlin and themselves, but the hunter still had his rifle. Before he could fire, Emil arrived and threw a knife, severing the nerves in Marlin's hand and preventing him from shooting. Fearing captivity, Marlin attempted to escape but lost his footing and fell into the abyss. In the aftermath of this adventure, the turtles gave their old home to Leatherhead, where he continued working on a way to contact the Utroms. Years passed, and the turtles finally put an end to the Shredder. Unfortunately, this victory triggered a turf war between various factions. One small group of criminals, including former Foot Clan members, attempted to pass themselves off as the Foot. After escaping from the turtles, this group tried to ambush them in their old lair, unaware that the place was now inhabited by a giant alligator. This wasn't Leatherhead's first encounter with ninjas. He had recently fought some and lost an eye in the process, which left him wearing an eye patch. Recognizing his strength, the criminals begged him to spare their lives and asked him to become their sensei. Leatherhead then explained his origins to them, with the intention of recruiting their help to build a transmat device that could reunite him with the Utroms again. The reason for this was that his hands were too large to perform the delicate circuitry needed. The ninjas began working on the nearly finished device, while Leatherhead left on an excursion to retrieve the final component. However, during his absence, the turtles arrived to visit their old friend, unaware of the intruders. A fight broke out between the turtles and the ninjas. The giant alligator stopped the fight and explained his reasons for keeping them as his assistants to the turtles. After hearing his speech, the turtles decided to stay and help, if anything, to protect him from the clan. But the idea of Leatherhead leaving Earth didn't sit well with the ninjas. They sabotaged the machine, hoping to keep him as their leader. Perhaps because of this tampering, the machine exploded during its first use. The failure triggered Leatherhead's rage, and he nearly killed everyone in the room. Eventually, he regained control and decided to leave, vowing to plan his revenge another time. Left without the machine he had worked on for years, Leatherhead realized he was destined to remain alone forever. But what he didn't know was that his dreams of reconnecting with the Utroms were about to turn into a nightmare. Leatherhead's brutish nature made him a prime target for an Utrom religious sect known as the Illuminated. This group believed it was their mission to cleanse the universe of violent species, and they saw Leatherhead as the key to their plan. By creating an army of Leatherhead clones, they hoped to eradicate the Triceratons entirely. The Illuminated began secretly visiting Leatherhead, anesthetizing him and injecting him with chemical cocktails designed to enhance his mutagenic abilities. These experiments regenerated Leatherhead's missing eye and made him grow larger and stronger. However, the enhancements came at a cost. He found himself increasingly overwhelmed by his reptilian rage. Since Leatherhead was always unconscious during their visits, he attributed his changes and long blackouts to some sort of radiation poisoning. The Illuminated created a new transmat device for him until Leatherhead was ready to be taken away by them. The turtles saw Leatherhead disappear moments before a group of Utroms appeared and destroyed the transmat device. This could have been the end of that, but the turtles were soon visited by Ribke, an emissary from the Multiverse Defense Council. Ribke revealed the Illuminated's plan to unleash an army of Leatherhead clones on both the Triceraton Republic and Earth, and he asked for their help to stop it. When Leatherhead learned the truth about the Illuminated's actions, he was devastated. He had always viewed the Utroms as a peaceful and intelligent race, and this betrayal shattered that belief. Ribke and the turtles mounted a daring rescue, freeing Leatherhead and fighting against the clone army. In the final battle, Ribke made the ultimate sacrifice, guiding the turtles and Leatherhead to safety before blowing himself up to destroy the Illuminated spaceship and stop their plans for good. It was then that the turtles learned Ribke was once a toxic waste disposal foreman who lost the ooze canister that mutated them. Perhaps even more disappointed after the suicide mission, Leatherhead asked the Utroms to return him to the sewers. Sometime later, Leatherhead was kidnapped by an Australian global weapons R&D group. The turtles, after investigating the company, known as Martech, traveled to Melbourne to rescue him. From there, they ended up on an island named Hobbs Gate. It didn't take them long to discover that the whole thing was organized by Marlin, who brought together a group of monsters and hunters from all over the world to broadcast a battle royale on the dark web. The last hunter standing will be allowed to leave the island. To their surprise, the event was organized by Marlin, who had survived his previous encounter with Leatherhead and the Turtles, but at a steep price. He had lost an arm and a leg, replacing them with advanced prosthetics. Now, Marlin was working alongside another known criminal, Razorback. The cryptids on the island were being controlled with mysterious chips implanted in their bodies. When the Turtles' presence was discovered, Marlin sent a brainwashed Leatherhead to eliminate them. Fortunately, Donnie managed to deactivate the chip, freeing Leatherhead from their control. In the ensuing chaos, Leatherhead stopped Marlin from escaping, but not before being shot in his right eye during the confrontation. In the end, Leatherhead hurled Marlin into the sea, where he was attacked by 3 aquatic creatures. The entire operation was shut down when Emil Tendaji arrived on the island, revealing that the kidnapped cryptids had been secretly protected by his agency. Emil offered the Turtles and Leatherhead a ride home, but Marlin, somehow still alive, managed to shoot down their helicopter. After Leatherhead regained his senses, the Turtles discovered that his eye had healed, thanks to the steroids that all the cryptids had been injected with. Leatherhead had another chance at killing Marlin, but this time, he was able to control his rage and capture him so that Emil could put him in jail. However, the situation worsened when Marlin's men unleashed a creature created from cryptid DNA, one they couldn't control. The flying cryptid attacked Emil's men, creating a distraction that allowed Marlin to escape once again. From the safety of his boat, Marlin used a machine gun to try to kill both the monster and Leatherhead. Did I say safety? Scratch that. A giant sea monster emerged from the water and apparently devoured Marlin. 2 weeks later, the Turtles and Leatherhead stayed at the spare headquarters in Mayotte until they recovered from their injuries. However, it was more of a prevention measure, as officers were afraid that perhaps the monster could have contaminated the Turtles. On the other hand, Leatherhead had a very fast healing ability, but still waited for his friends to recover. After that, they were returned to New York. Leatherhead continued living in the sewers, occasionally crossing paths with the Turtles. He was present at Splinter's funeral, paying his respects alongside his friends. Later, he got into a fight with a mutated Raphael. However, no additional stories were written about the character after that. Leatherhead and Dr. X reunited in the now non-canon volume published by Image Comics. In this story, Leatherhead found Dr. X left behind in the rubble of the TCRI building. Together, they worked on a transmat device that could take them back to the Outram homeworld. Unfortunately, their efforts inadvertently triggered a Triceraton invasion. In the chaos of the battle, Leatherhead was transported into the Triceraton Republic. He eventually returned in a fan-made conclusion to this volume, but that's a story for another video. Leatherhead was created by Ryan Brown in 1988 and later debuted in issue number 6 of Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Originally, the plot for Leatherhead's debut story would have seen him falling to his death alongside Marlin during the climax. However, Peter Laird rejected this idea, choosing to keep Leatherhead alive. Leatherhead also became connected to another Ryan Brown creation, Dr. X. This Outram character was initially planned to appear in Volume 1 of Tales of the TMNT, but didn't make it into the series. Years later, when Gary Carlson was working on TMNT Volume 3, he consulted Ryan Brown and incorporated Dr. X into the story. However, after Volume 3 was rendered non-canon, Dr. X was reintroduced as Xenos in Tales of the TMNT Volume 2. While Leatherhead wasn't the first Jekyll and Hyde reptilian antagonist in the comics, his place in the Turtles universe was more than justified given the character's underground habitat. I'm talking, of course, about the infamous urban legend about alligators living under the New York City streets. The urban legend likely dates back to the construction of the city's sewers, but it gained significant traction in the 1930s. A man named Teddy May, who claimed to be a sewer commissioner, described a campaign to remove alligators from the sewer tunnels. This account was documented in Robert Daly's 1959 book, The World Beneath the City. But for reasons that will become quite obvious later in this video, the whole thing was unverifiable. In fact, a follow-up investigation revealed that this man wasn't even a sewer commissioner. Despite its dubious origins, the legend continued to inspire pop culture. It reached its peak in 1980 with the release of the film Alligator. The movie told the story of a baby alligator flushed down a toilet that survived in the sewers, feeding on dead animals that had been exposed to growth hormones. Over time, the alligator mutated into a giant predator, threatening anyone who dared venture underground. While it takes notes from many of the legends surrounding sewer alligators, the movie is a satirical take on consumer fears about tampered food supplies. Don't get me wrong, alligators could potentially make their way into the sewers, but they wouldn't survive there for long. Several factors make it impossible, the most significant being the low temperatures during winter. Alligators are cold-blooded and rely on external sources of heat or sunlight to survive. Leatherhead, of course, isn't an ordinary alligator. His mutation and intelligence likely helped him adapt to the harsh conditions and stay alive. The same logic can be applied to the turtles, who are also cold-blooded yet thrive in the sewers as if they weren't. Their mutation might have altered their physiology, allowing them to retain heat for longer periods. Alternatively, their survival could be explained by gigantothermy, a phenomenon where larger cold-blooded animals maintain a more stable body temperature compared to smaller ones. Large turtles exhibit this trait in nature, which may also apply to Leatherhead. But temperature isn't the only challenge for an alligator living in the sewers. It's safe to assume that scavenging rats wouldn't be enough to sustain such a large predator, and a real alligator would likely relocate to a more suitable environment. In any case, the character comes with a Jekyll and Hyde feature that allows writers to make him fight against the turtles at least once per adventure. They called this reptilian rage, something that could be attributed to him being a large, aggressive predator. However, it's worth pointing out that in his later interactions with the turtles, as long as he wasn't under any sort of mind or chemical control, he was able to conquer his rage and act as the intelligent and pacifist creature he was. Ultimately, his intelligence became the source of his greatest disappointments. Disillusioned by the violent nature of both humans and the Outrams, Leatherhead rejected them both, choosing to live a quiet, isolated life in the New York sewers. The character was adapted many times, and I'll cover those versions in future videos. What do you think of this version of Leatherhead? How does he compare to others? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.